Please be seated. My name is Jeff Martinhawk. I work for the bishop at the diocesan offices, and I'm starting to feel at home here. I've been here a few times while your rector, Janine, is on sabbatical, and it's good to be back again. I'm starting to get to know a few faces and appreciate your warm welcome once again. A happy Father's Day to all of you who are fathers or have been fathers to others in your lives. In the gospel today, we find Jesus traveling across the lake of Gennesaret outside of Galilee. When he arrives on land, he discovers one who has been plagued by demons. The demons are strong enough apparently that when the man was restrained, he was able to break the bonds and shackles that held him. And the demons are plentiful. Many demons had entered him, we are told. Legion is the name the demon is given, a name explicitly reminding Luke's audience of the Roman Empire's name for its military organization. A legion of the Roman Empire was a unit both great in strength and great in number, just like these demons. A legion of the Roman Empire was a tool for imperial oppression, for not only keeping the peace, but keeping people imprisoned in the servitude and inequitable systems of the empire. So Jesus arrives to find this man under the power of the legion demon and enters into an intense confrontation whereby he calls the demons out of the man and drives them into a herd of nearby swine, who immediately throw themselves into a lake and drown. Those whose economic livelihood has been based off of caring for the swine run away, and they start spreading rumors of Jesus' powerful exorcism. The local people listen to the story, but they become afraid, and rather than celebrating the once possessed man's recovery, they drive Jesus out of town. Now, this story is at odds with an exorcism and healing in Luke just a few chapters earlier, where a miraculous healing that's similar drives the crowds instead to seek out Jesus and his life-giving power. Here, we instead learn that the good news will not always be accepted. There is evil in the world resistant to the message of Jesus' good news. I'm struck by the coincidence of the lectionary providing this story to us today on Juneteenth. Juneteenth is a celebration of good news in the middle of a similar kind of persistent evil. On January 1st, 1863, President Abraham Lincoln declared the slaves of much of the nation divided by civil war to be free from slavery in the Emancipation Proclamation. Just as in our gospel story this morning, the good news was not universally well accepted or well received. The news didn't even spread. It was resisted so strongly. Freedom for the slave was seen by some as a bad thing, and those people turned against freedom itself. The systems and powers and economic interests resisted the call to turn to love and hope and dignity for every human being. So as a result, the federal government tried something else. It was about 2.5 years later, on this date, in June 19, 1865, that Union Major General Gordon Granger brought General Order Number 3 to Galveston, Texas. That general order declared in part, "The people of Texas are informed that, in accordance with a proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This involves an absolute equality of personal rights and rights of property." Now, I happened to be on vacation in Galveston, Texas, one June 19th, about 25 years ago. Like some of you, I'm a Texas boy. I had never heard of Juneteenth at that point in my life. But I can tell you that all those years later, and this is 25 years ago, the good news of freedom still brought celebrations and crowds and joy to those Texas shores. In an otherwise normally sleepy vacation town, the beaches around Galveston teemed with people of color celebrating this holiday. The crowds flocked to celebrate the good news. And now, when we're 150 or so years after that original day of Juneteenth, it's become a federal holiday starting last year. But again, like the swineherds in our gospel, it hasn't been universally received as good news, and some folks oppose that move. And still, here we are in the wake of George Floyd and Charlottesville and the Tops Friendly Market and the 7-year anniversary of the shootings at Emmanuel Charleston and so many others. The good news of the dignity of every human person is still not welcomed by all. It can feel like one step forward brings 2 steps back. In such times, it can be easy to lose hope. It's hard to hope for a vision that seems out of reach. But I think the epistle today tries to reorient us with a concrete vision of something to hope for. The passage from Galatians for many years in the early church was used as the baptismal formula. It was what recited as people joined the church in baptism. In those days, slavery looked different than it did in 1865, but Roman society was still marked by mass inequality. The clothes one wore, along with other visible markers of identity, would let those around you know where you stood on the social hierarchy, whether you were free and nearer the top or lower to the bottom with the slaves, whether you were a Gentile free to worship in the customs of Rome or Jewish with freedoms carefully negotiated by Rome, whether you were male eligible to rise in the patriarchy or female with gender-based limitations. The early church was at that time mostly a body that gathered in houses, and when they gathered, they would leave those markers of identity, of stratification behind, and upon entry into the church house, they would put on a white robe, the baptismal robe, much like our albs today, so that within the body of the church, all would be equal. And those visible layers of stratification, those visible layers of hierarchy and oppression from Roman culture would be left outside. And so, when new people joined the church, they would literally clothe themselves with Christ by putting on their baptismal garments for the first time, free of the limitations the Roman culture imposed on them while they were within the church. And the words of the baptism would be from Galatians, "For in Christ Jesus you are all children of God through faith. As many of you were baptized into Christ, have clothed yourselves with Christ. There is no longer Jew or Greek. There is no longer slave or free. There is no longer male or female. For all of you are one in Christ Jesus. And if you belong to Christ, then you are Abraham's offering, heirs according to the promise." The very entry point of the church was defined not by outward markers of identity valued by the Roman culture, but by the commitment to follow the good news of freedom and liberation with a beautiful tapestry of different kinds of people unified in Christ. It's a truth that rings so Christian that Martin Luther King Jr.'s famous speech echoed the concept, "I have a dream that my 4 little children will someday not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character." We have a God who keeps insisting, even when the demons surround us and the crowds seem to have no hope of believing in the decency of human dignity, that we are, each of us, endowed with purpose and meaning, and that every human on this planet is the beloved of God. Just like the man freed of evil in our story made the crowds fearful of Jesus, there are those who react to fear when good news threatens the status quo of racism. But Jesus brings freedom anyway. That's just what Jesus does, and he promised this from the very beginning. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free. And when you are no longer chained, you cannot not shout and share and praise and worship. And maybe this is the root of the fear of the crowds, that the good news will get out. Because if it does, that good news may just free even the crowds after it works its way in. That the good news shows no partiality or partisanship. That the good news truly is for all. Church, we are workers in the vineyard for just that antidote to fear, the freedom that casts out oppression even in the face of fearful crowds. We're charged to follow that same path of courage in the crowds, speaking truth to power and reclaiming the belovedness of all God's people. From the very beginning, it's just who we were made to be. Please stand and join me in affirming our faith in the words of the ancient creed as printed on page 3 of your service bulletin. We believe in one God, the Father, the Almighty, maker of heaven and earth.